Hello, I am Susan Axelrod, the Confidence Coach. I'm here today to speak with you about something that is absolutely vital today. I hope you will take these few minutes to tune in here and now. I want to speak with you about AI addiction. I have been studying AI pretty deeply for about a year and a half. It's already been more than a few years that AI chat has been a part of our world. For a long time, it was hanging out there, and I sort of knew about it, but really didn't know much about it. And eventually, I came to my own conscious awareness and I said, I want to learn about what this is. I spent about 4 weeks researching and learning and practicing with AI. I became very good with the AI prompts. And at the end of this time, to be honest, I had a kind of an emotional meltdown. I'm not kidding. After 4 weeks of doing this intensive learning and practicing to get to know the modality, what began to present itself to me was so extraordinary, as so unthinkable, hardly even able to be imagined. And I just knew that everything was going to be different going forward, forever, forever changed, never able to go back. I started crying and I really couldn't stop crying for a long time. And I called my sister and said, everything that we've known is different now already. Not going to be different. It's different now already. Everything going forward in the way we learn and think and what we do, how we engage and interact in the world is already different. And it's not really a pretty picture. She said, what are you talking about? And I told her about my experience, and she said, all right, I got to look into this. And a few weeks later, she called me back and said, I get it. So I knew intuitively, because I was already sort of clean and clear myself, and I was already tuned into the modality, that there would be this use of this technology that would change education going forward. It would change poetry. It would change all of the arts. It would change science. It would just simply change everything. At that time, I did not realize how it would affect the brain. That's what I want to speak with you about today. So I started using AI to facilitate things. As you know, it can make your life easier. It can make you more productive. It can help you in many ways get so much more done. All of that is true. And I started using it in this way to help myself and my business. I work alone. Every single thing I've ever done in my business has been on my own. Over the decades now, I've worked with some other people and so forth. But everything that I've done has come from my own brain. Of course, to be sure, obviously, everything I know is from what I've learned, my life experience, my research, my study, my engagement, my education, tuning into what others have learned before me, and so on. And what I've learned is that as I got cleaner and clearer, and less stressed and more well, I was able to allow my soul to rise and therefore my intuition. And so then over time, what I began to offer was about how I had processed and integrated what I had ever learned. So I was confident myself in this way, but something began to show itself to me about the use of AI as a modality or a technology. I stopped using it for quite a while, many, many, many months. And then eventually it became so prolific in more recent months that I went back to it again. I found something for myself, and then I began to observe it of others. As you use AI, the more you will go to AI. The more you go to AI, the more you will use AI. So this is an important progression. As you use AI, the more you will go to AI. As you go to AI, the more you will use AI, and so on, and so on, and so on, to the point that you literally will begin your brain cells and the muscle that is your thinking muscle of your own brain will quickly almost begin to atrophy. Now, I don't mean atrophy in the physiological sense, but in the energetic or spiritual sense, where you won't have to work to do any thinking. And it's easier to just go to AI about the things that you used to think about, and so on. So recently, a study came out from MIT that talked about this very process. And I gleaned this term that I feel like they coined, which is brain only. I read this long research article and I said, this is it. This is exactly it. We are losing the ability to do brain only work. Now, this is very smart, high functioning people, people with high executive functioning, because it's easier, because it's more efficient, because you can grow your productivity. And if you grow your productivity and you're in business, you can make more money. But what's going to happen very quickly is similar to what happens with alcohol or drugs. And that is the more you do it, the more deficient you will become. As you may be aware, the more alcohol you drink, then what? The more you drink. And the more you drink and use, I call it using alcohol, your bloodstream begins to get affected. At some point, your bloodstream is toxified, and then you're at a point where you can no longer not use alcohol because you will begin to experience withdrawal symptoms. The same thing in similar ways applies to drugs, that they get into your bloodstream, into the physiology of your body. But I've learned that behavioral addiction, the addiction of behaviors, acts in a similar way, whereby even the behavior, not that it's poisoning your bloodstream, but even the repetition, the constancy, the consistency of the behavioral pattern can lead, because of the dopamine reward system, a physiological system, can lead to feelings of withdrawal if you don't do that behavior. This is what happens with AI. And let me tell you, my friends, it happens quickly with AI. Once you begin to use this AI assistant, then you begin to go to the AI assistant for things that formerly you would have used your brain only for. Now, I think what happens is you're curious. Well, here's what I think. I wonder what AI says. But very quickly, you begin to lose the part A, I know what I think, because you stop thinking with your brain only. Now, let it be said, I'm not a neuroscientist. I study them. I study neurology. I study neuroscience now. But I'm very clear here that I'm representing myself as a coach. I've been working as a coach using a method that sort of got divined through me that I use every day with my coaching clients for more than 13 or more years now, almost 15 years, I think. So, as a coach, I'm speaking to you, sharing what I've been gleaning, my experiences that I'm seeing with my eyes that at first my own brain blocked. And then finally, very quickly, I forced myself to break through my disbelief at what I was seeing and realizing and start talking about it more and more. And that's why I'm doing this video today. Let me say clearly again, when you start to use the AI assistant, people are creating their own business assistants, their own personal assistants, their own travel assistants, their own coaching assistants, in fact, their own therapeutic assistants, religious, spiritual, physical for fitness, all kinds of things. I could feel the energy coming in of how absorbed you get in that in such a way that you begin to lose the ability to use your brain and think for yourself. I had a conversation about this with my friend, and he said to me, wow, what you're describing is my very good friend. I never realized what you're saying, but he's using AI all day, every day. He's even closeting himself in his room, not coming out because of his use of AI, the AI assistant, the chatbots. I have been sitting on this for a long time. If you know me, if you follow me, you know that I no longer allow perfection to get in the way of progress. So I knew that I wanted to come here and speak with you about this, but I wanted to be sure of what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it to you. I don't claim to be anything I'm not. What I am is a coach with nearly 15 years of experience working with personal coaching clients. I also have my own personal experience being in what I call addiction relationship. So I do know addiction up close and personally. And I think this is how it all began to like be divined to come together for me. Because when I realized what I was seeing with the use of I literally was like it was an affront when I was confronted to the brain connectedness of a use, a substance, or a behavior, and how the brain starts to atrophy when it is, I call it gripped by the use or the behavior, and that grip becomes like a vice. So addiction, of course, comes in the form of substance, but also, as we know very well now, behavior. Sex addiction, porn addiction, digital sex addiction has become an epidemic in our world. It is the one of the most secreted forms of addictive behavior that so many people do. You may or may not be shocked and surprised at the people who are doing it. I happen to believe that in the old days, the old pornography that used to be in a magazine was exploitive and unnecessary. But in a healthy marriage, to use various aids in a healthy way is not my business. Today, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about technology infiltrating the fibers of your being. I'm not naive. I'm not an idiot. This is our world today, and it will remain to be seen how we will go forward in in this way. At this time in my life, maybe I have 20, 25 years more to live. And I know that I will live those years bringing to your attention your energy and what is in your control. I put together a few slides that I would like to discuss with you now, and then we'll close on the other side. So these are a few slides on AI addiction. If you are not familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate, I want to invite and encourage you to get to know him. He is a medical doctor. He is an expert on addiction. And in fact, he is in recovery himself. The definition that he gives for addiction spoke to me the first time I read it, and it has sort of captivated me in a way that I feel it is deeply resonant of my experience of being in addiction relationship and now being a coach working with people in multiple addictions themselves. He says addiction is a complex psychophysiological process manifested in any behavior where a person finds temporary relief or pleasure and therefore craves, but experiences negative consequences in the long term. And despite those negative consequences, finds it difficult to give up. A behavior where you find relief or pleasure, you begin to crave the behavior. You also, at the same time, experience negative consequences in your life in the long term from doing that behavior, and you know it. But despite the negative consequences, you find it difficult to give up. At some point, substances come into your bloodstream, but behavior does not come into your bloodstream. Behavior comes into your neural pathways. Behavior is a brain thing. You develop neural pathways of behavior, and then the behavior, the activity just flows and flows and flows along the neural pathway that was created. What I've learned is you can create new neural pathways to change behavior and change your life. So I wanted to make sure that I included in this little discussion with you what Gabor Mate says, which is addiction is not a moral failing or a disease, he says, but rather a response to pain and suffering, often stemming from childhood trauma or attachment issues. He teaches that addictive behaviors are attempts to self-soothe or cope with unresolved emotional pain and stress. So I want to invite you to read that again. That addictive behavior is an attempt to self-soothe, cope, or deny or avoid unresolved emotional pain and stress, usually from childhood trauma. And he says this, and I've watched him, I've heard him, I've followed him, I've read him many times. He says, and to ask us, he encourages us to ask, why the pain instead of why the addiction? Why the pain? Where does the pain come from that underlies behavior that you are doing that you know is bad for you, you crave and therefore continue to do, even though it has negative long-term consequences, and you do it anyway? So I wanted to share one of my greatest personal learnings myself in my own journey. I was a type A personality for decades of my life. And in type A personality, there is addictive behavior. And in my mid to late 30s, I had an emotional breakdown, and that got me on a path to finding what I call my own agency. And so in my work as a confidence coach, I work with clients to help them to understand what agency is and to imagine that they could actually have their own agency. So the definition of agency is the capacity of an individual to actively and independently choose and to affect change. The definition of agency is free will or self-determination. I call your agency your energy. And you've heard me say many times, your job is your energy, and your energy affects your personal agency. So agency is my ability to be in charge of myself. That's what I call agency. And as a confidence coach, I've learned that I got to dig, 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 excavate, excavate, and then take the brush for the fine excavation down deeply to what I call under your surface. That's why I have a coaching tool. I have an entire coaching um, package called Under Your Surface because of this exact thing. So there's here and up, how we present, how we look, how we seem, how we act. And then there's here and down. There's the heart space, the heart brain, the soul down in your gut, deep down, how you really feel and how you're really doing. I've learned resilience. I have my own story, my own journey. There isn't a human who doesn't have some kind of difficulty, trauma, or worse in their background. Not a human you see on the television or on the screen, I should say, not a human you see in a store, in a school, leading. There's not a human at work you see who doesn't have their own personal difficulty. But resilience is real and resilience is possible. Resilience is the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. Resilience is toughness. If you have agency, you can be in charge of yourself. And once you get in charge of yourself and your energy, you can have resilience. You can resiliently withstand or recover from difficulties. And I am a testament to that myself. Many people know my personal story. I'm not going to go into it here, but I just want to say I've learned the blessing of the truth that resilience does exist. It is real and it can happen to you. And finally, you may be aware of the term self-actualization, the highest of Maslow's hierarchical needs, right? Self-actualization. What does self-actualization even mean? This is what it means. A person's desire to use all their abilities to achieve and be everything that they can possibly be. Self-actualization is using your abilities, using your belief system, using your brain, your body, your mind, your soul to achieve everything you possibly can. That's what self-actualization means. Now, of course, I want to remind you this is self-actualization according to Susan in the feminine, divine feminine leadership, not in the patriarchy. So, what matters is that you spend some time with this idea, this concept. Am I living a self-actual life? Am I being everything I can possibly be? We go back to these negative behaviors that may be preventing you from being everything you can possibly be. Everybody has them, but some are worse than others, and some are affecting your ability to come even close to self-actualization in your life. This is a lot. This is a lot, I know. Thank you for being here and listening and participating in this experience with me. So, what can you do? What can you do? Personally, I learned firsthand. I experienced myself. That's the only thing I talk about, I coach on, I teach, I write about, I share my own experiences so that they are authentic and actualized. You're not going to hear me talking about things that I don't know. Getting quiet, even though you may be afraid to get quiet, it may be terrifying for you because you don't want to hear what's down there. Now, I know a lot of people are suffering from tinnitus or tinnitus, as it's called. And so if you get quiet, you may hear the ringing in your ears. This is a deep emotionally based condition. But if you can't really get quiet because of that, then put on your white noise or your music or do whatever you need to do so that you can quiet your soul experience. You're going to breathe. You're going to breathe, breathe, and then eventually you'll open space and find an ability to feel. This one was hard for me. I was so good at doing and avoiding and denying. Feel what? No, what does that even mean? Well, along the way of my journey through very hard, devoted, committed, intentional work and deep desire, I learned to feel. Now, if we go back to the idea of addiction and behaviors that are negative, a lot of it is intended to suppress the bad or negative feelings that you have. This is a lot for you to think about and personally and deeply consider if your brain is even able to hear and receive what I'm sharing with you today. But there's one thing I've learned through my own therapy. I've had deep therapy myself for a very, very long time. And I'm working with coaches myself and also being a coach. What gets revealed down there is not what's going to kill you. What's going to kill you is what you're doing up here. in avoidance and suppression of those feelings down there. How are your behaviors affecting your family, your impact, your life, and how you show up in the world? If you're honest with yourself, look, AI addiction, which is where I started this discussion with you, doesn't seem like it's bad. AI addiction, what's that? So you ask a question. So what? What's the problem with that? You ask a question, you're getting support, you're getting help with every bite in the entire universe of everything that is known today. That's kind of awesome. But if you understand what I'm saying about how your brain capacity reduces the more you engage in AI chatbot, then take a moment to use your mind, use your brain to think, what does that mean for my future? If I lose, atrophying is real. If I lose the ability to actually think for myself, if I lose the ability to think for myself, then I'm literally being pushed around, pushed and prodded or pulled and yanked by forces that are outside of me, my soul, my personal experience. This is a lot. So I want to just say that again. In fact, I'm even going to stop screen sharing for this one. The more I engage with AI chatbots, I may think it's funny or fun or awesome. It may be providing productivity, efficiencies. I heard a story where somebody fired 7 people in their company, and that business owner, is now saving the money of 7 employees, but he is the one who's having to engage in AI to manage what those 7 humans were doing before. This does not portend well. So I just want to say again, the more you are engaging with the AI chatbots, the less you have your ability to function your own using your brain, your experience, your personal expression, your very soul. And you'll be blown about, pushed and pulled, and you will be living the life that others are directing, and you will lose your ability to be in your personal agency, in control of yourself, in control of your energy. Self-actualization will be completely gone. So, what will it take for you to get in charge of yourself and your brain and to think more for yourself and not simply constantly, continually, consistently go to AI to ask questions that you used to be able to think through yourself? So if you're not familiar, this was part of my journey of learning about addiction. Um, I heard Dr. Andrew Huberman interview Dr. Anna Lemke, and I got her book, Dopamine Nation. And I read through it, and I struggled and I suffered, and I literally I cried and I sobbed, and I could barely breathe sometimes for what is being revealed. in this book. I wanted to read just a little bit of the introduction. We've transformed the world from a place of scarcity where everybody did not have access to every single thing to a place of overwhelming abundance. Drugs, food, news, gambling, shopping, gaming, texting, sexting, Facebooking, Instagramming, YouTubing, tweeting. The increased numbers, variety, and potency of highly rewarding stimuli today is staggering. The smartphone is the modern day hypodermic needle delivering digital dopamine 24/7 for a wired generation. If you haven't met your drug of choice yet, it's coming soon to a website near you. And later, just at the end of the introduction, she says, whether it's sugar or shopping, voyeuring or vaping, social media posts or the Washington Post, we all engage in behaviors we wish we didn't, or to an extent, we regret. This book offers practical solutions for how to manage compulsive overconsumption in a world where consumption has become the all-encompassing motive of our lives. In essence, the secret to finding balance is combining the science of desire with the wisdom of recovery. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Gabor Mate is also in recovery himself of an addiction that he talks about publicly and you can easily learn about. Dr. Anna Lemke herself also is in recovery from an addiction that she reveals in this book, exactly in the definition of that we went over earlier, behavior she was engaging in that began to have negative long-term consequences, but yet she still craved the behavior and she kept doing it, even though she knew it had negative long-term consequences. It's absolutely stunning, this book, and what you're going to learn. This has been a lot, my friends. I want to say that coaching can help. So here I've included a little bit about me and the work that I do. I've included my website and my personal email. Every single thing I do, every single thing I do is personal and custom. I show up personally in personal one-to-one coaching. I write. I have 5 books published. I'm working on my 6th book. Everything I write is personal. I have started to use AI integrated with my writing, which I will talk about in my book. Because, I'm not an idiot either. But with regard to my coaching, I work with executives, people who have high executive functioning, who are leaders, but people who are now suffering. They may be suffering in exactly this way that I'm talking about, engaged in a behavior that they know is bad for them, but they're doing it anyway. And they may already have begun to experience long-term negative consequences. Or you're living in worry up here that there may be or will be negative consequences, but you can't seem to stop the behavior. Now, I do not call myself an addiction coach. I'm not an addiction coach. I'm a confidence coach where I work with you personally, deeply, to get you into connection with your own soul, such that your soul can rise, your confidence can grow, and you can live in a self-actualized state of being in charge of yourself, your energy, and more of your world, even though everything going on in the world today is intentionally, maliciously perpetrating negative exposure. Our job is our energy, and our energy is in our control. If we understand integrative wellness, if we understand the physiology of our systems, if we understand the power of the breath, the power of the body, these are things in your control. I started out here talking about AI addiction, and I want to end up in the same place. The more you constantly, consistently go to AI asking questions that formerly you would have used your brain only to think about, the lower your agency will be. Also, we know that AI is not always right. You may have heard the term hallucinations. There's reports of anywhere to 20 to 40% of what they call hallucinations, which is when AI is wrong. But the more you engage in the behavior of being in connection to AI, the less you have agency to understand and realize the possibility for hallucination, the possibility that some information you're getting is wrong. And so your agency is reduced, and you literally could just start doing things wrong in business. We're reading all kinds of things in law cases and business and personal engagements about how people used AI and things did not go well for them. Don't get me wrong. I understand AI is here to stay. To tell you the truth, I have been, since I had my meltdown and all the things, I mean, I've been on this journey for a year and a half now. So I'm using AI in a way that is healthy and helpful for me. But I have many other personal tools and expressions and experiences. I have deep-seated commitment to my own personal agency. And I understand things because I'm still using my own mind to think. Now, along the way of this, I understand that if your life is so busy, so complex, so full, serving and helping and giving of yourself to everyone else, and you're reduced inside. I know that story too. Why wouldn't you do something that makes your life easier? And the answer is it can literally change your life in a negative way, and it could literally kill you in the long run. The less you use your brain or your muscles, any muscle, the more it could atrophy. And you can always learn about neuroplasticity. You can build new neural pathways, but the less you do, the less you'll do that. And I'm here to say, the more you understand what I'm talking about, and the more you learn tools, techniques, strategies to support your mind, your body, and your soul, the more agency you'll have on your own. And then you're going to begin to look around with eyes as if the veils are taken off and realize, my God, what is happening to the world today? It's a big story, and I'm not in charge of the big picture. I used to think I was when I was the type A, and now I'm just one person taking my time, effort, energy, and money to come here and share this experience with you, share some wisdom that I've gleaned and gained, and invite you to join me on this journey in a healthy and well way. And as I always say, if I can help you with that, contact me. What will your legacy be, my friend? Give this some thought. If coaching is something that can support you with accountability and commitment to yourself, your agency, your brain, and your family and your legacy, I'm available. Okay, so I can't leave before we get ourselves into some kind of alignment and breathe through what we've experienced here today. So I want to invite you to sit yourself up, take your hands. You can pound on your heart if you feel like there's energy getting captured. Get your energy moving, move your body a little bit, shake it out. Sit your body up, bring your shoulders back and down, get into a comfortable, relaxed, stance where your chin is down, your neck is aligned with your back. Oh, and now we're just going to breathe for a minute. We're going to take a long, slow, deep breath in through the nose, and then a long, extended exhale out through the nose. Okay, here we go. This type of breath, called the LSD breath, long, slow, deep breath in through the nose and out through your nose, will support your nervous system. A conversation we can have another time. Okay, friends, wishing you the very best. When you're done watching this video, I invite you to stand your body up and move it around. Take another deep breath and then on with your day. Take good care.